cheeseburger and more.
Okay, what will be is will be some NFL agents. How about that?
Oh,
How about that?
There we go. Be that.
Right. So we'll get it going.
Show me the money.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Paul Brown Stadium. I'm Tim Taney, and I'll be presenting this today to you. The question is, why would I want my client to come and play here for the Cincinnati Bengals? By the end of this today, you'll know exactly why. But we have to start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning. Anybody tell me what year the Cincinnati Bengals started? Yes, sir.
1958.
1968 is when Paul Brown started it. But actually, a little known fact, from 1937 until 1941, there was actually another American football conference that was around, and it stopped in 1941 because everybody had to go off to World War II. But there was a Cincinnati Bengals team from 1937 to 1941, and it was actually founded and coached, and he played by my grandfather.
No way.
Yes. And I actually didn't get to meet him. He died before I was born, but I have plenty of trophies from the American Football Conference from a long time ago. So that is where the Bengals actually began. In the early 60s, the NFL decided that you could not own and coach a team by yourself. The Cleveland Browns were one of those teams. I'm sure everybody's understood and heard of Mr. Paul Brown. The NFL said, we are going to have somebody purchase the team because you can no longer do this. Anybody got any idea who bought that team? Art Modell, who took the Cleveland Browns and packed them up and moved them to Baltimore. But a few days after they signed that contract, Paul Brown was fired. Who fires an icon in the NFL like Paul Brown? That's like firing George Halas or Vince Lombardi. You don't just say, you're done, you're out. So needless to say, he wasn't very thrilled with that, and he had a few ideas on how to get his revenge. He petitioned the AFL for a team and looked at Columbus, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, picked Cincinnati. Got a group together, 1967. He paid $8 million to form the Cincinnati Bengals as they are today, knowing that in 2 years, AFL would be joining the NFL. So, one of the funniest parts of this that, unless you're from Cincinnati, you don't know this. When Paul Brown left Cleveland, he packed up all their equipment. Helmets, shoulder pads, practice pants, uniforms, everything they had. Dummies for practice. He owned all of it. So he took a semi and brought it all down here. Cleveland had nothing. Modell had no items to work with.
Nice.
So in 1968, they started using those uniforms. They just spray painted the helmets a different color. Played at UC, University of Cincinnati, Nippert Stadium for the first 2 years. Didn't even have a real field. 1970, moved into Riverfront Stadium with the Cincinnati Reds, brand new stadium. And in 2000, they built Paul Brown Stadium, and he had actually written it in his will, he had passed away, that he did not want his name on a stadium because he didn't want any recognition. But they did it anyway, because he deserved it. 47 years later today, still family owned and operated by his son Mike and his granddaughter Katie. $1.4 billion is the worth of it as of last week. So that's doing pretty good, I would think. In the 70s, he coached until 1975. Paul Brown did. In the 70s, they did okay, a couple of playoff appearances. 1975, he quit on New Year's Day, and he named the offensive line coach, Bill Tiger Johnson, the head coach, over, anybody tell me who we picked him over? Who we lost to in the Super Bowl a few years later? Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh was his offensive coordinator, and Tiger Johnson was the offensive line coach, and we see how that worked out.
Yeah, probably the best decision.
No. 1980s, up and down years, 2 Super Bowl appearances, lost to Mr. Bill Walsh in the San Francisco 49ers, lost to him again, had a different coach then. A couple other playoff appearances, didn't really get anything. Some not so good years. 1990s. I'll sit for this because this is going to be the bad part. You can start throwing them out now. We were the Bungles. Made fun of every day, all day, shows. Yeah. We couldn't get anybody to even come and watch a game. We did not have bags on our heads like the Aints down there, but we were bad. How about David Klingler?
Ooh.
Bad choice. How about Achilles Smith? He threw for about 20 touchdowns in his senior year of college and decided we'll make him a #1 pick. How'd that work out? Not too good. Could have been our coaches too. David Shula. That's got to make you cringe, doesn't it? Who thought he would be a good coach?
His dad.
His dad. That's about it. I think he's on Alabama right now, doing something. Bruce Coslett. Not good. Well, I mean, we couldn't even beat the Giants. You don't want to throw anything at me about the Bungles? Huh?
In 4 years, man.
You got to have something about the Bungles.
They were an afterthought for most teams.
Yes, they were. We couldn't beat a high school team for all of the 90s. And then Mike Brown got a little smarter, listened to some other people, and decided in the 2000s to let some other people help him with his advice on who to pick and who to draft. And they came away with, they picked a young defensive coordinator from the Baltimore Ravens who had just won a Super Bowl, Coach Marvin Lewis, who 13 years later is still here. They decided to start getting some stability. The majority of his coaches are still with him. A few have moved on to head coaching jobs. Jay Gruden with the Washington Redskins. He's dealing with some issues there with RG3. Mike Zimmer, a great coach who didn't get an opportunity until last year, is with Minnesota Vikings. And actually a player on his team, a tight end, Kyle Rudolph, my son actually threw him about 52 touchdowns in high school.
Oh.
So they're very good friends. Huh?
Yeah, he was a Notre Dame
player.
And
So did I.
we didn't even get to do the Icky Shuffle because you've been watching him on the Geico commercials, haven't you?
We didn't